Welcome everybody to another session of Dogington University, our special program that's brought by Dogington Post and Merrick Pet Care. They're here because they care about the safety and the training of your fur babies. Merrick Pet Care, as I've been saying over the past couple of weeks, they're the leaders of the real food revolution, and what that means is very simple, that when you open up a can, it's real food inside. Merrick makes really good food. It's healthy food. It's real food. It's all made in the USA. It's their meat is USDA inspected and fresh produce. You can smell it when you open up the can, and so too your dog will go absolutely nuts, and it's good for them when you open up a can or a bag of Merrick. So, welcome. We're so thrilled to have Merrick here. They're using a little bit of the power to the paw to continue with our series of live webinars on dog training with some of the top dog trainers in the world. And they're going to be sharing their philosophy, maybe some tricks, and maybe some time for questions and answers. And moreover, we encourage you to pay attention because you just might be the lucky winner of a 25-pound bag of the new grain-free real Texas beef dry dog food. And to make matters even sweeter, Merrick will give a bag in your honor to our good friends at the National Mill Dog Rescue. So, guys, welcome aboard. So, a year ago, I was at a dog show, and I stopped at a booth, and there was a woman there who was a dog trainer, and she was called the Dog Talk Diva. Her name is Camille. Camilla Gray-Nelson is called the Dog Talk Diva, and we had a fascinating conversation. She gave me a copy of her book, and although we didn't talk long, gosh, she made a really good impression because she has a very interesting approach to dog training, and in particular a specialty. I'm going to let her say more about what she specializes in and what she looks at in dog training, the particular angle, and I know you're going to be glued to your seat. So hopefully we'll have time to take questions. Now what we're going to do, Camilla, is I'm going to make you the presenter, and then we'll just be ready to show your slides. Okay, as soon as, now click show my screen, and there we go.
Click show my screen. You know, us dog trainers aren't necessarily techies, so here we go. Are we set?
Well, yes, we see your screen. There we go.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Harlan, for the invitation. And yes, it was fortuitous, wasn't it, that we ran into each other at Global Pet Expo in Orlando. You never know how things are going to come back together in this journey of life, but I am delighted to be here with such a wonderful audience and in such an august lineup of presenters. Thank you very much. So a shout out to all the friends that are out there that know Dog Talk Diva and are listening. Shout out to my staff. Hi, guys. And a shout out to hopefully so many new friends. I hope this is the beginning of a long and productive relationship between you and me. So I'm going to go through this. It's a little unusual for me to have a presentation and not have an audience in front of me. Most of us aren't webinar experienced, so I'm going to just sort of.
So let me just tell you, because you can't see. You can't see, but there are a couple of hundred people hanging on every word you say. So just letting you know, you've got a really big audience here, and they're enthusiastic, and they're going to be cheering you on. So take it away.
Love it. So dog trainers are never at a loss for words. So yes, indeed, I have plenty to say. And we will have time, hopefully if I've timed this right, for questions and answers at the end. But thank you so much. And I'm going to dedicate this hour to all dog owners that struggle to balance love and discipline, dog owners that have trained their dogs, but they can't get them to mind when it really counts. And those, and this is a big category here, they hesitate to correct or discipline their dog because they fear it will damage their relationship. And for me, this is the donut hole that I think I have filled with my particular training style. And because that donut hole is so big, my business has thrived. And I want to share with you the specialty that I have and really how it came to be. I love helping, so Diva is to the rescue every day, almost 7 days a week out here in California. So who the heck's Dog Talk Diva? People say, who do you think you are, having such a moniker? But don't let that brand name fool you. Honestly, I'm not an actress. I'm not an accountant that learned to train dogs as a second career. I'm not a recent graduate of an online dog training school who thought I'd put out my shingle and the world would be the path to my door. To really understand my training style and my philosophy, you do need to know who the diva really is and where she comes from. So I'm going to go back in history. All I am is I'm a farm girl that trains dogs. I was born, I was raised on the dairy farm here in Petaluma, California, Northern California. And if you haven't been to California, maybe you don't realize that California is, once you get north of San Francisco, which is where we are, it's quite rural and quite remote in some places. And such was the farm I grew up on. But as a child, I raised and trained everything I could get my hands on. My horses, my ponies, my cows, my dogs, my goats. I honestly trained a cat. I trained him to speak, sit, come when he was called, and that was my crowning achievement, I'm sure. Well, you know, you get older, you go off to college, you can't wait to leave the two-horse town that you grew up in. And I had great big plans, big career, went to college, went to graduate school, and believe me, those plans did not include becoming a dog trainer. They did not. But sometimes life has other plans, and I'm sure a lot of people who've lived enough years are shaking their heads right about now going, oh yeah, I didn't see myself here 20 years ago. But it all works out. So here's where I started. I'm going to take you through a little background, not because I want to toot my horn. I really want to be clear about this. I'm going to take you through my background and where I came from because it will argue my case that what I have to say to you today is real, and it's based on a lifetime of experience and hard work and not something I just read in a book last week. So in 1989, I was out of school, trying to work in a few little jobs, but never really a career. Well, my friends knew I had a way with dogs, so they would ask me to help them with their dog training, and of course I gave them the super friend discount. I wasn't making 2 nickels to rub together. And then strangers started asking for help, and that's when the light bulb went off, and I went, maybe I should start charging a little more. Then I got a truck. This is the actual truck, my 1990 F-150, have truck will train. And after work and on weekends, I drove to people's homes, helping them with their dogs. I also bred and showed dogs during that time. My weekends and evenings were very busy, as you can imagine. But over 12 years, between 1989 and 2001, dog training gradually became not my part-time job, but my full-time job. In 2001, some family changes. My dad was dying. My brothers they were getting out of the dairy business because they didn't want to work that hard. Quite honestly, it's a very tough life. And they left the farm kind of fallow. You can see the dairy barn on the lower left, just going to ruin. And one day I looked at that dairy barn and I went, okay, I got to pay the taxes on this place. I don't want to milk cows either, but I'm pretty good with dogs, and if I could just make more money doing that. So I converted that dairy barn into the board and train that you see on the right. 4 dogs a week. I was sole proprietor and trainer, but I could charge a lot more, and I was efficient use of my time. Later on, I had 1 employee. On my own hands and knees, I got down, and I'm not going to explain exactly in graphic detail what all that stuff is on the floor, on the barn, on the left, but you farm girls know exactly what it is. And in 12 weeks, I switched it to what you see on the right. Word spread about this board and train, this place on the farm that taught your dogs to be fabulous. I was booked 8 months out, and after 6 years, I actually needed to expand. In 2007, I had the big extreme makeover. Be careful what you wish for. You know, I drew this on a napkin and handed it to a draftsman, and next thing I know, I've got a 42,000 square foot facility, 3-acre dog park, 70 dogs can stay there. I went from 1 employee to 20, and if you don't think that's a leap, you know, that's a conversation over a glass of wine some night, and 5 trainers. So I was able to build this business and run it myself. I personally trained well over 10,000 dogs by now. This goes back 23 years now, so I've got a little bit of history to draw from. And what I'm most proud of, I got to tell you, it's word of mouth that built my business. I don't even have an advertising budget. I hardly do even now. I didn't have any slick packaging or TV show. I built this, but by word of mouth. My clients built the business into $1 million business, I have to say. And I am just, I've gobsmacked myself every time I look at this and I say, you know what? I think I'm on to something. Might be an understatement. Business is booming. It's so much fun. We do boarding and daycare, grooming, dog park, classes, consultations, all of that. But our flagship service, of course, is our training. I began as a trainer. I'll die as a trainer, and it's always the focal point of Dairydell Canine. Now, Dog Talk Diva is kind of like a little personal brand that I decided I really need to reach more people that need help, that can't come physically to my facility in Petaluma, California. So I developed an online presence, and I decided I'd give myself a name, Dog Talk Diva. If you know me, even when I'm training dogs, I have to have the Manny, the Patty, the perfect lipstick. Yes, I'm a farm girl, but I'm a diva too. So what can I say? But as Dog Talk Diva, that's where I can get online and I can write blog posts. I can talk with people across the world via the internet. And I teach on everything dog and beyond. Now, as Harlan mentioned earlier, my specialties are these. Voice control. We are voice control specialists. And there's a reason I'm pointing that out, because it will be very apparent as I go through the presentation why we can do this. And yes, dog training for women. Again, I didn't plan on being a dog trainer to women. It just sort of happened, because in the 23 years I've been doing this, 3 out of 4 at least of the clients that seek my help are female. They're all women. Guess what? It's the woman of the house that gets saddled with all the dog responsibility, whether she wants it or not. And not only that, but they all had similar issues, similar problems, similar complaints. And I went, this is not there's a common thread here, and luckily I knew what it was, and I started developing just, form follows function. So my training style evolved in response to the real needs of my clientele. And many of those clients, but not all, were women. By the way, men have the same problems too, but in much lower numbers. My focus is not training. My focus is leadership. Leadership, nature's way. Remember, I'm just that farm girl. So my dogtalkdiva.com is a little, screenshot of what the website looks like, where I post training tips, educational posts. We talk about any question you have about dog behavior. And if you don't have a chance to ask your questions today for some reason, or I don't have time to answer them, just go to dogtalkdiva.com and send me a question that way, and I can respond to it. And my response will be public if it's appropriate, and everybody can sort of have advantage of the questions and answers. There's also a lot of other interviews with me that will give you a deeper look into my head and how I think about dogs and dog training. And yes, Harlan, I finally wrote that book. Do you know, I had the name Lipstick and the Leash in my mind as a title for a book for probably 20 years, probably almost as long as I've been training dogs. But, having it in your mind and actually getting to sit down and write it, two completely different things, especially when you're growing a business. But I have to say, like Sally Field would have said, and they liked it, they really liked it, nothing is more gratifying than to put your heart and soul into something and write what you believe, and then have critics actually like it. It was Book of the Year. Dog Writers Association of America just presented me with that amazing award in February, and I got to go to Manhattan and receive the award in person there the night before Westminster. They also gave me a Maxwell medallion for the best training book. It's received a USA Best Book, a Living Now Gold Award, and it's actually, I just found this out, it's up for another Book of the Year. It's nominated by Forward Reviews. Now, I don't know if you guys know what Forward Reviews is, but it's like the Women's Wear Daily of the publishing world. They write reviews in a magazine, and the bookstores and the libraries check out, what they should, the quality, the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. So I'm really tickled, and it is available for you guys to purchase at the end or at your own time if you want more information. So here's my passion. I want to help dog owners be effective with their dogs. Effective. That means I want them to get more of what they want from their dog and not be ignored by their dog. I want them to be effective. I want the dogs to be stable and happy, because I'm telling you, there's a reason so many dogs are so neurotic and so many behavior problems, and it's not necessarily what you think. Most of all, it is my absolute passion and my honor to teach what nature taught me about quiet power and leadership. And I want you to notice on this slide that the word training does not even appear, because it's so not about training. If you want to describe my style, it's very natural. It is quietly powerful. And as I witness every day, every week, every month in my business, it can be transforming. I was just at the bank this morning, getting back here in time to give this class, and a hand reached over from the window next to me, and someone said, a little boy, and I didn't even recognize the woman, and she said, "Dairydell saved my dogs." And I looked over, and it was a woman who had brought her two Vizslas in for training 2 years ago. I was her last resort. And I started to get verklempt, That really, as a dog trainer, that's why we do what we do. So get my composure back. So yes, I distinguish between training and obedience. Unlike a lot of trainers, I think you use those in the same breath. Training and obedience, my friends, are not the same. Not the same. They can overlap, and in a perfect world they do, but they are not the same. Training is what you teach your dog, what the dog learns cognitively. Obedience is what he does with what you teach him. And I know there's some smiles out there right now because it's oh so true. How many trained dogs are there that still won't come when they're called when there's a cat or a big distraction? Yeah, training is what they know. Yeah, I know what you mean by come. Oh, I know what you mean by sit. I'm busy now. Obedience is when a dog defers to you and does what he's trained because he wants to. It's so huge. That is so huge. Doesn't sound like much, but it's huge. See, one word is more about knowledge. The other word is about power. And when I use the word power, I don't want you guys to cringe and back up because I'm talking about power the way nature talks about power. And we'll get into that. I don't follow trends. I don't use gimmicks. I don't use special tools. I don't use clickers. I don't use touch sticks. I don't use bags of treats. I don't have to because I train in nature's way and I follow her model. And if nature doesn't need a clicker and if nature doesn't need a touch stick and all of these things, then that tells me I probably don't either if I'm really being true to her style. So when I use a training tool, because obviously I'm not a dog, I can't get down like a dog and talk like a dog and walk like a dog, but I can, in a creative way, imitate some things in dog talk. So when I use a training tool, my goal is to use that tool to imitate something that's experienced by the dog in nature. And yes, I will use any tool. Any tool. Let me repeat that. Any tool. But I will use it appropriately. The phrase, throw the baby out with the bathwater, always comes to mind. I'm sorry, I got these hokey little farmy sayings that I grew up with, so they're going to come out every once in a while. But throwing the baby out with the bathwater means acting too rapidly, reacting, and not delving deeper before you just dismiss an entire idea. When trainers or dog owners react and dismiss the use of a tool, let's say it's a prong collar, because it looks awful, and they don't delve deeper into know why it exists, why it's designed like that, how you can use it appropriately, you have missed an opportunity to communicate in a dog's own language. My brand is called Dog Talk Diva for a reason. Dog talk is my primary language. I mean, I honestly learned that before I learned English, growing up as a baby on the farm with the animals and the dogs. I learned how to communicate with them because they couldn't speak, and guess what? Neither could I. But we'll get into that, and I hope you have questions on dog training tools because I'd love to answer those if I don't fully answer those as we go through the presentation. For me, I am humbled every day by nature. I think she is timeless and she is perfect. And timeless can never be old-fashioned. So when the worst slur you can say to me is that I'm an old-fashioned trainer. That doesn't even make sense to me because timelessness, true timeless, cannot be old-fashioned. I am a diva, so nature is my little black dress. So I didn't have tea parties, and nobody slept over. I didn't have any friends except the calves, the horses, the ponies, and I had real interesting conversation. But let me show you and introduce you to, tell you about my most influential mentor. Every dog trainer has one, but mine had 4 legs. Piggy the Cow. I was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe. It was before school. Piggy the Cow was the queen of my father's Jersey dairy herd. She was absolutely the undisputed queen. Now, here's how Piggy worked. Every day, the ranch hand would pull up the tractor and the trailer and they'd throw bales of hay into the feeding trough, and from every corner of the ranch, there would come galloping and stampeding these young heifers because they couldn't wait to eat their fill. And I know why they ran so fast, because they had to get there fast and carb up before Piggy got there. Now, Piggy, on the other hand, did not run. She sauntered. Why rush? She said. I'm going to have everything I want when I get there. I know exactly what I want, how to get it. And so she would saunter up and sidle up to the trough, and the heifers in the know, you see, would part like the Red Sea, unless we had a couple of newcomers, new girls on the block. And Piggy would just sort of stand there. She'd give them the eye, the piggy eye. And if they still didn't move, she'd lower her head and neck. She'd give a low, throaty moo. And if they still didn't move, she just turned her body, gave a well-placed bump of her meaty shoulder, and they went flying. And then Piggy proceeded to eat her fill in peace and quiet. And it wasn't until years later, honestly, that I realized that Piggy was my mentor. She was just my friend. I spent hours with her. I rode her. I brushed her. My father wouldn't buy me a pony, so I had to ride the cows. But that's another story. But when I think back now I know what Piggy was all about. She was the undisputed leader, but she did it without violence. She never got in fights. She just knew what she wanted, how to get it, and she was unapologetic about setting boundaries for others. And now, by the way, I know why I could ride Piggy and not the other cows. These were pets. These were cows. These were animals. Piggy was just too dang confident to be skittish. It would have been beneath her to act nervous. So she stood there and let me get on and ride around until she took me under the tree and knocked me off. So here's what I learned from Piggy. Know who you are. Set your rules and don't apologize for them. Enforce those rules quietly but very clearly. Then eat all the hay you want, because you know what? It's your pasture, your rules. Now here's what I learned from the other animals on the farm, including my brothers. And believe me, this is true for all animals, whether you walk on 2 legs or 4. So, smile along with me. If something's fun, pleasant, or serves their purpose, they're going to repeat it. That's true for all animals, including the human animal, by the way. If it isn't fun, pleasant, or productive, they're not going to do it. This idea that you can force a dog to do what he doesn't want to do is insane. Unless they're not really an animal, or it's an animal that I have not yet met. If it's not fun and they don't want to do it, they won't do it, period. It's knowing how to get them to want to do it, you see. That's the key. They'll do what they want, when they want, as long as they want, till something or someone stops them or they just lose interest. That is how a dog is wired. That's how an animal is wired. Bullies and barkers are ignored, and so are accommodators. So when Piggy sidled up to that trough, she wasn't a bully. She also didn't say, Gladys, would you rather have my salt lick? Could I distract you a little with my alfalfa cube over here? No, she said, I'm sorry, but this is mine. Don't allow you to be there. You're my good friends, but out of my way. And the only one an animal will take seriously is the one with higher group status. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about status because that's the entire ball of wax when it comes to effective training, filling that donut hole that I've been able to do so gratefully and so successfully over the years. So the animals will only take serious, if it's a group of horses, they'll only take seriously the lead horse. All the other horses are ignored. Boss cow like Piggy. And guess what? My parents. We would take my parents seriously because they were true leaders. We would ignore each other, but we'd take our parents seriously. So putting this into specifically narrowing it down to dogs. The truth about dogs, and my brothers, by the way, they choose pleasant options. They follow a strong and proven leader. They do, they do, they do. They see emotional extremes, however, as weakness, not strength. This is so misunderstood, even in dog training, maybe especially in dog training. Somehow people got the idea somewhere along the line, and I really think it's when we turned more to Hollywood for entertainment than the animals in the real life, because society moved from the country to the city and all of that. But Hollywood has really warped our idea of what strength, power, and leadership is. And I'm sorry, I love my movies, but it's doing a lot of damage to the dog training world. In reality, anger and overt intimidation is very revealing to the recipient. They look at blustering blowhards as the imposters that they are. When you think about in your own life those individuals that were true leaders, they inspired you, you wanted to follow them, you were in awe of them, or historical figures that changed the world. People followed them just because of this strength and this aura they had about them. They weren't bullies. They weren't blowhards. They weren't mean, cruel, or punitive. You see, it's the bully on the play yard that does that, and bullies begin with a lack of self-confidence. So you give away your weakness when you think you have to play your loud card, your mean card. Piggy never did that. She was too cool. She knew who she was and how to get what she wanted. You following me? I hope so. So important. And dogs, like people, like my brothers, they have egos. And again, if you think that you are going to control a dog by crushing his ego and his spirit, you have another thing coming. Another thing coming. What you'll do is you'll lose a hand. There are ways to communicate strength that can respect ego and avoid loud voice talk, loud voice shouting, intimidation. You don't need any of that. And I'm telling you, true for dogs and for people, a little praise goes a long way. You know, beneath it all, we're all the same animal. We're all the same animal. It's amazing how many people forget to praise their dog, especially after they've corrected their dog and the dog fixed the problem. So what this means in dog training is status and hierarchy exist, and they matter. They matter. And I hope we have a chance to get into the nitty-gritty of that. I think we will as we go through and the questions that come in. Leaders are obeyed, subordinates are ignored. Leaders are quiet and strong. They're not mean, angry, punitive, bullying. I wear a button I wore a button with Piggy's picture and the letters WWPD. Sorry, my irreverence, but you know, stands for what would Piggy do? And whenever I have a difficult situation, I don't know how to handle it and be the leader that I need to be, I just ask myself, what would Piggy do? Very inspirational. So training is what you teach your dog. Obedience is what he does with it. One's about knowledge, the other's about power. Obedience is willing deference to status. Willing deference to status. Don't confuse it with anger. Don't confuse power with confrontation, intimidation, or fear. Nature knows it's none of those things. Here's how I like to define it. Power is nothing more than the ability to get what you want. That's it. Preferably without an argument. Because it's really about psychological advantage. I'll tell you, my mom and my dad, great example. My dad, really smart guy, self-made guy. Emigrated from Ireland, became a self-made man here. He was the rancher. And he was an only child, and he was used to getting his way, and he was charming and smart and all those things, right? But my mom knew how to get exactly what she wanted all the time. She had power over him. I never heard them exchange a crossword in my presence. She respected his ego. She picked her battles, and she knew about the power of praise, but she also knew exactly where she needed to draw the line. And when she drew it, but it was reasonable. You see, the greatest victory is won without a battle. That's a very famous quote, and I use it in dog training. But my mom was a really great example for me. And, you know, I always say I learned almost everything I know about dog training from my mom, and she never, ever trained a dog. She trained me and my dad. So top dogs achieve their power not through fighting. Please, get off it. That's Hollywood. You know, that's Hollywood. That's the Nature Channel with the rival males going at it. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens. A tiny percentage of the time. A dog wakes up in the morning and all he wants to do is get through the day without injury and without dying. That goes for the alpha dogs and the top dogs. A dog, now this is the most fascinating part, and really listen carefully because this is the key. Dogs control resources, space, and freedom of others through symbolic gestures of power. Symbolic gestures of power that hint at greater power in reserve. For example, I have it listed here, bumps, barks, and nips. Dogs with each other to sort of figure out their pecking order in the dog park. It's a series of bumps and barks and nips, not because the strong dog wants to hurt the weaker dog. The term throw your weight around. Ever heard that? Throw your weight around. Guess where that comes from? It comes from animals. Throw your weight around is a term that refers to symbolically making yourself known as being strong. Throw your weight around. Dogs do it all the time. When dogs will bump another dog, he's throwing his weight around. What he's saying is, see how big I am, strong I am. I could take you in a fight. So hopefully we won't have to. That's what I mean about symbolic gestures of power. When a dog barks, a top dog, a strong dog to a subordinate dog barks, the bark indicates to on the receiving end, that sounds deep, sounds loud. That must mean big, strong, powerful. I think I will defer to them because I don't want it to go any further. And when a dog nips another dog, these nips and these bites, these display things that dogs do to each other, don't get your panties in a twist about that. That's conversation. And the dog, trust me, if a top dog wanted to do damage to a lower dog, a dog's an apex predator, my friend, and I've seen what they can do in 10 seconds or less. It's very sobering. So that nip, that's a shot across the bow. That's the dog saying, you see what I can do with just these little front teeth? You wouldn't want me to use the whole set now, would you? Let's just agree to disagree and get along. And it works. So bumps, barks, and nips in the dog talk language are a dog's attempt to identify the hierarchy and restore peace, because it is only through a well-defined ladder of social relationship that dogs get along, you see. Because the only time dogs ever fight is when two dogs want the same thing. Two dogs want the same resource. And remember, only the top dog owns the resources. So dogs will fight when one dog won't defer. The other thing, and maybe if I don't have a slide about it, I want to talk about it right now. The whole idea of dogs having an absolute driving need to know who's driving here. I think I do have a slide about that. Let me see. They have a driving need to know. And I'm going to back up a slide. Pardon me. The reason that dogs must know who's in charge, they must. And you'll see it in a dog park. You bring a new dog to a dog park and you watch. There's a flurry of activity. Well, it's kind of like musical chairs, right? And the music just stopped. And there's a flurry of activity while the most dominant dogs rush the fence and they posture and they tippy-toe and they straight leg the dog coming in, as if to say, just so you know I'm the boss here. Just so you know I'm the boss here. Once the dog arriving says, yeah, I agree, they do a little appeasement behavior, peace is restored to the kingdom. And there's a reason that dogs need that leader, because in their survival, it's the leader that actually keys the survival of the pack. And we're going to get more into that maybe with later in questions. I don't want to go off on a tangent here and use up all of our time. But in terms of the top dog, it is only he that can go where he wants, have what he wants, and do what he wants. The freedom belongs only to the lead dog, the top dog. Everyone else in the dog pack or the dog park, which has become the dog pack of the day, everyone else is controlled or limited by that top dog or others that are above them. Status is determined by limiting freedoms. It's not determined by sit and stay. It's about freedoms and how they're limited and how they're allowed. So you can achieve power with your dog. It really depends everything on the dog. I always use a balance between positive reinforcement for things that I want the dog to repeat. That's the only way dogs learn new behaviors, is they like what happens when they do them. So positive reinforcement is a must for teaching new behaviors. But then you balance those boundaries, that freedom I talked about. Unless you want your dog to think he's in charge, you cannot give him full freedom, because only the top dog enjoys that in nature. You make boundaries, you limit freedoms. And depending on the dog, using consequence as feedback, yes, consequence, as feedback, not punishment. That consequence I'm talking about in dog talk is a version of a bump, a bark, or a nip. Properly applied, with cool, calm leadership, it is transforming for your dog. And instead of ruining your relationship, it strengthens it. So it's the balance between those elements. Every dog is going to take a different balance. Let's say I have a dog that bites, or a true alpha male. And not very many of them, by the way. They're rare as hen's teeth. Most of them are imposters. But let's say I do. There is no way I'm going to do a lot of consequence on that dog, because that dog already believes that he rules. And if I try to take away in a direct fashion or consequence him, I'm likely to get my hand bitten off. What I'll use for that dog is like what my mom did with my dad, lots of positive reinforcement, careful boundaries that are quietly applied. I call it benign opposition. I think it's a term used by Diane Bauman in one of her training books. I love that term. If I have a normal dog, or a dog that's just sort of silly, willy-silly, then I'm going to use a real clear balance between consequence for things I don't like, positive reinforcement when he stops, and lots of boundaries. So it just depends on the dog. And you cannot make a sweeping generalization about all dogs or about all training styles, because it does a disservice to the intricacies of nature and the personalities within nature and the relationships between social groups. I think it's not respectful of nature to be a sweeping generalization or oversimplifying dog training. It really, really depends. So you're only 4 questions away from taking your dog from just a mere training dog to an obedient dog, because a dog asks 4 questions. And if you know these questions, I'm telling you, when you're working with your dog, you can see him ticking through the list in his brain. You really can. And my trainers who are listening now are laughing their heads off, because absolutely you see it. If you know what you're looking at, you see it. First question they ask when you give them a command is, oh, well, who's asking? Who's asking? And do you outrank me? Remember? If you can't answer that question in the affirmative, the conversation is over, and your dog will just do what he wants when he wants until he loses interest. The second question, can you make me? That's where the dog is testing your ability to follow through, set a boundary, enforce your own rules, because only the leader can do that. And if you are in a position where you can't follow through, you just cut your power off at the knees. Just whistling Dixie. The third question, once the dog knows you can actually make him, if you have to, what if I don't? Cheeky things that ask that, because they really want to weigh, well, what's in it for me, and how much do I have to lose if I don't do this? They're very, very self-absorbed. Yeah, believe me, dogs don't please you. Dogs are not born with a desire to please their owner. That's a bunch of hogwash. They want to please the owner when the owner answers question number 4. However, what if I do? So many clients and trainers forget to answer question number 4 from the dog. The dog has just given up what he wanted to do for you because he thought maybe you deserved it because you had power and he respected you. And then you don't even get him a t-shirt? Come on. What if I do? He just gave it up for you. And if the dog says to himself, well, that wasn't worth it, guess what? The next time, he's not going to obey. So you have to remember to answer question number 4. So answer those questions, like how do you answer question number 1? Who's asking and do you outrank me? You make more rules and you accommodate less. More rules. I see this all the time in rescue dogs. All the time. Someone will get a rescue dog and they don't know the background, or they do, and they feel so sorry for this dog. They don't want to put any pressure on the dog. So they just let them have carte blanche in the house, on the property. The dog is going, well, who's driving the bus here? Oh, God, I guess it's me. And I don't know how to drive, and now I'm really nervous. And they are neurotic messes. What they want and what they need is a very precise package of behaviors that's okay, and where does my freedom stop and yours begin. I just got to know that, because I got to know the org chart. I got to know the org chart in this family. That they're driven by that. And less accommodation. We accommodate our dogs all the time. All the time. That is an entire subject, 2 or 3 hours in and of itself. Can you make me? That's as simple as having a plan before you ask. All it is being able to follow through, even if it's just to model the dog into what you just asked them to do. I see it with the come command all the time. Come, Fido. Fido looks and goes, he's asking all his questions. Okay, make me, can you make me? I can't make me, okay. Then the conversation's over because you can't make him. And he knows how long your arm is. He knows he doesn't have a leash on. So there you go. So before you ask, why don't you have a long line on, or have some plan to go get him? See what I'm saying? Be prepared. Be a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, whatever that is. What if I don't? Just a bump, a bark, a nip, or in some cases with truly aggressive dogs, just withholding something that they want can be enough of a consequence to answer, what if I don't? Depends on the dog. And last, what if I do? I use very few cookies, guys, very few. But I praise, pet, smile, and repeat all day long. All day long. I tell them how beautiful they are, how smart they are, and then I do that with dogs too. So all of my training exercises are designed to answer those questions and communicate status, because status is everything when it comes to obedience. Now, if you just want a trained dog, you don't have to listen to this at all. We just want a trained dog, but if you want a dog to defer to you and actually do what you're asking when they don't want to, then you can follow along. Here's my favorite exercises, just a few of them. Leadership walk, posture exercises, and my favorite, don't do that. Do you know, my dogs only know 3 things, 3 commands. 3 commands, that's all they know. They know stay, come, and don't do that. So my leadership walk, here's my inspiration. Dogs with dogs, and oh God, I'm running out of time. Here's the inspiration. Dogs by themselves in a dog park. You can see one dog takes the lead. Not only that, but one dog has clearly gone into 2nd place and the other dog in 3rd place. These pictures were taken over a 30-minute period. But when I walk a dog, let me just clarify something, because there's been a lot been said about should you let your dogs walk ahead of you or not ahead of you. While it is true that most dogs do not have a desire to rule the world, that's so crazy. I can hardly say it with a straight face. They have no innate desire to rule their world or the humans in it, but they will take the lead if no one else does. Because in the animal world bus, someone has to drive. Someone has to be in the leader position for the pack to survive. That leader in the pack, because it's a survival thing, because that dog that has been anointed with the top dog status is the one in charge of procreation. The females are a resource. He owns them all. So if you don't have the right dog up there, your pack's going to die out. It's going to be sick and, weak and all that kind of stuff. Survival of the fittest. Dogs take charge. They do take charge, but they do it by default, not destiny. When you walk your dog and you let your dog walk out in front, the dog is not saying, I want to be in charge of you. But what you are saying is, I don't want to lead you. So the dog takes charge by default. So here's my leadership walk. You can 2 pictures here, before and after. Now, I take leadership by correcting the dog for walking ahead of me, because that's what that border collie did. You know, the border collie in that picture is not the fastest dog. The Doberman's much faster than Zoe. So she got the lead by disallowing the dogs to pass her. And she did that with bumps, barks, and nips. That's how she did it. How dogs do it. So what I do, this is a very stable, well-balanced, funny, but out-of-control dog. Not a biter, not anything weird like that, just your average dog. So I take the leadership by correcting this dog with snaps of the collar on an appropriate training collar for that dog, one that will actually feel like a little nip. Doesn't take much to change a dog's mind. Doesn't take much, just enough to make it more pleasant to walk by me than to walk in front of me. And what I'm saying to that dog when I give that little nip back is, I don't allow that. I'm leading. You can see in the bottom picture how relaxed and happy and quiet look how stressed that dog is up in front. Oh God, I gotta drive. Oh God, I gotta drive. I gotta drive. And now he's saying, oh, I don't have to drive? Cool. I'll let you lead. Happy, happy, happy. Doesn't look like a fearful dog to me. Doesn't look like an intimidated dog. Doesn't look like I beat the dog. I just took charge. You see? So that's what it's about. Posture. You'll see the dog on the left standing tall and the big old shepherd immediately falling down. Go, yep, okay, you're the boss. Don't want to fight here. You're the boss. And then me teaching the down command to that same dog who did not know down. When I bend over and I have bad posture, I'm sort of taking an appeasing posture. The dog's just looking at me like, yeah, what? Because he's asking the number one question, who's asking for this? Do you outrank me? And because I'm bowing to him, clearly the answer is no. I don't outrank you. The moment I stood up, shoulders back, and asked, the dog went down. So this dog was trained to this. I'm demonstrating training versus obedience. Isn't that interesting? It's just fascinating to me. My don't do that. Believe me, lead dogs don't say sit when what they really mean is don't do that. Oh, my Lord. If I hear one more person say sit when what they mean is don't jump on grandma and don't do this and don't do that. But they say sit, 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 sit. Sit is a performance. The lead dog would never say sit when it means is get the heck off my back. And so this dog is flipping around, giving that dog a bump and a bite, muzzle punch and a little nip and a bark all at the same time to say, get off of me. They just stop the behavior. And there's no fight. The brown dog just got off the white dog, and then they played the rest of the afternoon. When I want a dog, just take jumping, I will give a feedback like a bark. And you know what I do for a bark? Listen. Hear that? That's my penny can. The penny can works because it is the closest thing we can do to imitate a bark of a dog in nature. That's why they work. A lot of trainers don't even know why they work, but that's why they work. And then I had to make stopping more pleasant than continuing. Now, notice, I'm not even holding the leash here. Did the dog run away from me in fear because I barked? No, he said, oh, I get it. You don't want me to jump on you. Okay, I'll just sit here then. And I praise the dog and I say, you are such a good little boy. Thank you so much. That's exactly what I want. I make it fun. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but things like, I don't use a lot of commands, but when I do, I use them in this natural way. Things like leave it and off, and to some degree, wait and stay, are all just versions of don't do that, aren't they? Yes, they are. So you can teach a dog to respond to those particular commands, but what you're really saying is don't do that, don't touch that, don't move. And then there's what I call the proactive commands. In my style of training, I use these proactive commands in a very specific way, because if you're not careful, they get to be crutches. I will use them if I follow through and enforce them, because the follow-through moves them from mere suggestions for the dog to actual commands from the leader. Follow-through is your power. There's no power in a command. None. None. That's why top dogs don't say sit. Follow-through is your power. And it's not what you ask for, it's about what you won't accept. Now, chew on that a while. It's about what you won't accept. So, for example, if I have a dog on a down, and I haven't told him he can get up yet, and he gets up, I let the dog know with a little correction and a repeat of the command that I won't accept him popping up till I say so. That is power. And that's when the dog goes, oh, you be the queen. All righty then. And that's how dogs do it. So let me summarize these little leadership lessons. Leadership is what's going to get your training to true obedience. Leaders in the animal world are leaders because they control freedom, resources, and the choices of others, not because they say sit. And true leaders like Piggy, they're calm, they're focused. They are not afraid to follow through and enforce their boundaries, but they do it quietly, without much emotion at all, just quietly. You can be very, very loving and very, very strong at the same time. Ask any good kindergarten teacher. An obedient dog with a skilled leader, I am telling you, is calmer, and it's happier, and it's certainly safer. The biggest change we see when dogs come in for training in day one, which is why our motto is wild to wonderful, is immediately, once we start setting boundaries and let them know that we're driving the bus, not them, so they don't have to worry about it. The dog came in with hyperactive, complaints from the parent. It's as calm as a cucumber. It goes home and the owner thinks we gave the dog a lobotomy. I said, no, we just took charge. We stopped yelling. An obedient dog can be controlled without a leash, because obedience is deference to power and drawn to power. I can walk anywhere on my ranch with one of my dogs without a leash. And believe me, the dog doesn't know heel. Dog doesn't know heel. Just knows sit, just knows stay, come, and don't do that. That's all she knows. I can walk her anywhere, and I don't need a leash because she's drawn to me like a moth to a flame because of the power thing. So more information on Dog Talk Diva, tons of stuff there. And I actually have a Dog Talk store. I found that a lot of things that I needed in training dogs weren't available on the market, so I started my own line. And things like follow-through tabs and special tethers of the proper length, a whole kit. There is a whole gift kit, 3 penny cans and an instruction booklet in a cute little bag. Makes the perfect gift for the new puppy owner. That has been my bestseller. So, and notice up in the top left corner, those are alert bandanas. How many people come to me with dogs that are fearful on leash and they can't walk their dog because people let their kids and their dogs run up, and it just exacerbates the problem that we're trying to solve. So now there are caution yellow bandanas. One says no dogs. One says no dogs, I'm socially challenged. One says in training, please don't pet. And the one that's hidden is my post popular. It says shy dog, don't rush up. Very, very popular. So, and of course, lipstick and a leash, full of more stuff, especially if you're working to really train your own dog. If you're a woman, or if you're a trainer that needs more skills or more help or a little more ideas on how to work with that female clientele more effectively. And coming soon, I am so excited to announce for the first time publicly that I am going to sponsor my first annual Alpha Girl Weekend here at Dairydell. 3 days, 30 women, and our potential will be unlimited, because what we're going to do is we're going to, it's not even so much about the dogs, but we're going to use untrained dogs from my kennel with women who may or may not own dogs themselves, and learn about power, about energy, the nonverbal communication of posture and eye contact. It is going to be thrilling, and stay tuned at dogtalkdiva.com. So I want to thank everybody. I've yammered on and on, gone a little bit over time, but not bad. And hopefully there's lots of questions. I welcome them. And here's the contact information. I'll leave it up on the screen, but I'm ready for some questions, Harlan, if you got any for me.
Well, actually, we're out of time.
Oh.
We're going to have to jump off today. So, but I do want to thank you for coming on. Your contact information is there, and we're gotten some really good feedback here. So
I would say all those questions that you wanted to answer and I didn't have time to answer, ask them at dogtalkdiva.com, because it'll come straight to my personal email.
There you go. Okay, so we are we're coming back here, and we are ready now for our question. And you guys know who's ready to win a bag of dog food. Oh, look at that. Wonderful, amazing, thank you. Thanks again, loved it. Love this whole series. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, and now people want to win. All right, so go ahead and get ready to type in your answer, because we know that you guys are fast, and the fastest person is the one who types it in. So here we go. There's a phase of her teaching that's called Explain What I Do. It consists of 4 parts. I'm going to read you 3. Here we go. It consists of 3 parts: praise, pet, smile, and 1 more. Praise. Oh, wow, you guys are amazing. You're amazing. Oh, man. Okay, first one in, and this was close, but the first one on our screen is Rachel Prados. You are the winner. My gosh, you have an encyclopedic mind when it comes to dogs. An instant. Hooray, Rachel. Hooray, Rachel. And Rachel, would you please shoot us an email with your address to info@dogingtonpost.com. All right. And in your honor, Merrick is going to, first of all, Merrick's going to give you a voucher for a 25-pound bag of the no grain, real Texas beef dry dog food. And they're also going to give a bag in your honor to National Mill Dog Rescue. So thanks to Camille today. Thanks to Merrick once again. And we love all you guys for joining us. And tomorrow is the big conclusion of Merrick Pet Care, Dogington Post University. So don't miss it. And all of these will be available for you on our site. The entire replay series will be available as soon as possible on our site. We'll let you know. Thanks, everybody, and we hope to see you back tomorrow. Bye, everyone.